The night was too quiet for a building that never slept. A faint hum of electricity ran through the 22nd floor hallway, the kind of sound you only notice when everything else has gone still. At 2:13 a.m., a single office remained lit, an amber glow spilling beneath the door like something alive, something trying to escape. The cleaning staff had already left. The security cameras had just switched angles. No one was supposed to be there. And yet, the door to the executive conference room stood slightly open, as if inviting anyone brave enough to look inside. A cold draft slithered across the hallway tiles, pushing the door wider with a low creak. Papers rustled. The projector flickered, a dim blue square dancing quietly on the far wall. A thin black folder lay at the edge of the long glass table, almost humming with secrecy. The gold letters embossed across its cover shimmered under the ceiling light. Project Dual Shadows. A young assistant stopped in the doorway. She shouldn't have paused. She shouldn't have looked. But curiosity has a sound, and it whispered to her now. Soft, magnetic, impossible to ignore. She stepped inside, each footstep echoing against the marble floor. The city lights reflected off the glass table, making the folder look like it was floating. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached out and lifted it. The weight of it was wrong. Too heavy, too deliberate, as if every page held something dangerous. And then she froze. Inside were two printed photographs, side by side. Identical red tabs clipped to each one as if selected with absolute intention. Wang Yibo, Xiao Zhan. Before she could fully inhale, the room shifted. A voice, cold, sharp, cut through the darkness like a blade. Put that down. No one is supposed to see this. The lights snapped off. A hand ripped the folder from her grip. And everything that followed would ripple silently through the industry for months, like a secret too loud to contain, yet too dangerous to reveal. This was the project no one knew about. The reunion no one was prepared for. The script that almost brought two legends back together. Rumors had circulated before. Thin, shapeless whispers that floated between studio walls and vanished before reaching the public. But this time, whispers weren't enough. There was evidence. Concept. A plan that had evolved beyond talk and had taken physical form. Project Dual Shadows wasn't a normal drama. Far from it. It was conceived in the underground layers of the industry, beneath the noise and far from the public's hungry gaze. It was the kind of project that demanded anonymity. Everyone involved signed thick NDAs. Phones were locked away in secured storage. Writers used nothing digital. Everything was handwritten, edited, and rewritten with red ink. Even the actors considered for the roles didn't know the full storyline at first. Only fragments were shared during the early development stage. But those fragments were enough to ignite interest from some of the biggest executives in the business. The premise was bold. A psychological thriller, drenched in moral ambiguity, fractured memories, double identities, and shadows that felt alive. Two characters whose lives spiraled inward, bound by a past that neither understood nor fully remembered. During the pre-evaluation process, the director spent months watching footage. Live performances, dramas, action scenes, emotional monologues. Not just anyone could shoulder the roles. These characters weren't simply protagonists. They were emotional labyrinths. After dozens of evaluations, one conclusion solidified. Only two actors could embody such roles with the right intensity, subtlety, and emotional pull. Two names were circled, underlined twice, stamped with the studio's highest confidentiality level. Wang Yibo, cast as a strategic infiltrator with a fragmented past. A man capable of navigating systems with eerie precision, hiding trauma beneath cold composure. Xiao Zhan, cast as a forensic analyst haunted by a disappearance carved into his memory, driven by ghosts he couldn't outrun. Their reunion in the script was not warm, not soft, not nostalgic. It was violent, emotional, loaded with tension that burned silently through the pages. The writer crafted their dynamic with surgical precision. Each line, each confrontation, each moment built to test emotional limits. One early reader reportedly stopped halfway through chapter 4, whispering, "I can feel the room breathing. It's that intense." The studio wanted one thing, an atmosphere test. Not a formal audition, just an evaluation of chemistry. A closed-door meeting was arranged with ruthless secrecy. Phones confiscated. Blinds drawn. Cameras disabled. Only 2 chairs, a printed script, a dim lamp, and an unspoken test vibrating through the air. Wang Yibo entered first. Quiet, controlled, carrying that unreadable calm that always made people curious. His presence absorbed the air around him, steady and calculated. Xiao Zhan entered moments later, poised, gentle, yet carrying a quiet intensity in his eyes that changed the room instantly. For a moment no one spoke. Executives later described it as a silence with weight. Something thick, electric, familiar. They greeted each other, professional, polite, but underneath the surface something else pulsed. Something old. Something untouched for years. Neither of them named it, but everyone in the room felt it. They sat. The script lay between them like a dormant heart waiting to beat. The director asked them to read a single page together. Just one. They did. And something happened. Not dramatic, not loud, but undeniable. A shift. Subtle, magnetic. Lines exchanged with precision. Emotions layered beneath words. Silent reactions sharper than spoken dialogue. Executives didn't need more. "It's lightning," one whispered when the two left the room. "It'll work. The screen will catch fire." Project Dual Shadows advanced quietly. Character arcs deepened. Concept art was designed. A secret production calendar drafted. But the universe of film and entertainment is rarely simple. At first, the delays were small. A meeting rescheduled. Question raised about timing. A last-minute concern about market volatility. Then the concerns grew louder. Too much noise online. Too much attention. Too risky to reunite them too soon. Too many political layers. Too much pressure. Suddenly the atmosphere changed. Meetings ended in silence. Executives avoided eye contact. Backers grew hesitant. A final board decision was made behind a locked door. The project would be paused indefinitely. Not cancelled. Not destroyed. Just frozen. Staff were instructed to forget it existed. Writers were reassigned. The director filed the concept away. The black folder disappeared. On paper, Project Dual Shadows was over. In reality, it was not. 3 weeks after the shutdown, an anonymous image surfaced on a small private industry forum. Not public, not widespread, but real. The grainy photo showed a dim office space, a glass table, black folder, and a single page visible. Episode 1. The Return of the Shadow. Below the title were 2 silhouette sketches. Artistic, simple, but unmistakably shaped like 2 men who once created a cultural phenomenon together. The timestamp revealed something shocking. The photo was taken after the project had already been paused. Meaning, someone inside the studio was still touching the script, still adjusting scenes, still pushing the project quietly forward. One producer, speaking anonymously, said, "Some stories won't let you kill them. They linger." Another said, "Just needs the right moment. The world isn't ready yet." But the real message came from a leaked internal memo. Project Dual Shadows remains a priority. It is not cancelled. It is in protected development. The industry translated this into simpler words. They're waiting. Not abandoning. Waiting. Waiting for stability. Waiting for timing. Waiting for the public climate to shift. Waiting for the space where their reunion becomes a celebration, not a battlefield. Waiting for the perfect moment when paths align, noise fades, and the world is ready to see 2 giants on the same screen again. Focusing on the shocking discovery and the moments surrounding that forbidden folder. The assistant's heart was still racing long after the lights shut off, long after the folder vanished from her hands like it had been swallowed by the dark. She didn't run, not exactly, but she didn't walk either. She moved with the trembling urgency of someone who had just glimpsed a secret they were not meant to survive knowing. At the end of the hallway, she stopped beneath the emergency exit sign, the red glow painting her face with panic. She pressed her back against the wall and forced herself to breathe. Deep, controlled, steady breaths that refused to come naturally. Her mind kept replaying what she saw. 2 photographs, 2 names, a project title written in striking gold ink like an omen. Wang Yibo, Xiao Zhan, Project Dual Shadows. But it wasn't the photos alone that terrified her. It was the voice. That cold, cutting voice that appeared out of nowhere. A tone that carried authority, no domination. A voice that didn't ask questions. A voice that gave orders. Put that down. She had heard managers scold interns, directors snap at assistants, producers curse out staff, but this voice was different. It didn't carry anger, carried control, and an unmistakable warning. Someone powerful was protecting that folder. And they were willing to move through a pitch-black room without hesitation. Willing to turn off lights. Willing to take the file from her hands silently. Willing to make sure she never talked. Her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She flinched. Message. From an unknown number. Leave the building. Do not return tonight. Her throat dried. Another message came instantly. And do not speak of what you saw. Her hands went cold. She looked up and down the hallway, half expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. No one did. But the emptiness felt too heavy, too aware, like the darkness itself was watching. She didn't wait. She didn't think. Left. Across the city, the one person who should have been asleep at that hour was staring at his phone, confused by a message so vague it felt like a puzzle. They found the room open. The sender didn't identify themselves. They didn't need to. Wang Yibo read it 3 times. He was used to coded text. Work often required secrecy. But this message tasted strange, like someone was hiding fear behind professionalism. His reply was short. What room? No answer. Instead, another message came after a full minute of silence. Yibo, the project. He didn't move. Didn't even blink. For a second, the dim lamp beside him flickered, throwing soft shadows across the walls of his apartment. He inhaled slowly, letting the familiar weight settle in his chest. Project. He knew exactly which one they meant. The script he wasn't supposed to mention. The meeting he wasn't supposed to recall. The pairing he wasn't supposed to think about. He shut off the screen, leaned back and closed his eyes. Even in the silence of the night, he could still hear the echo of a voice he hadn't heard in years. A voice calm and warm, yet sharp when it needed to be. Xiao Zhan's. And somewhere deep inside him, a question stirred. Why bring up the project now? Did something happen? Did someone find something they weren't supposed to? He didn't sleep that night. Neither did Xiao Zhan. 3 days after the incident, Studio Building A returned to its usual noisy rhythm. Elevators chimed, phones rang, interns rushed between departments. But underneath the surface, something had shifted. The assistant who had seen the folder was transferred. Not fired. Not reprimanded. Simply relocated to another building without explanation. Her old desk was cleared by security, not HR. People whispered. No one asked questions out loud. The conference room on the 22nd floor was sealed, marked renovation, though no work occurred. The projector was removed. Table replaced. Every object inside the room vanished like a crime scene cleaned before a detective arrived. The only thing missing from the renovation list was the truth. And that truth spread quietly, like smoke slipping through cracks. Some said the assistant had fainted. Some said she saw a confidential contract. Some said she accidentally triggered an alarm. But none of them knew the real reason. Only one rumor carried weight. Soft, whispered, dangerous. They're planning a reunion. No one said the actors' names. They didn't have to. Everyone knew which duo could shake a studio into secrecy. Meanwhile, 2 very different men lived 2 very different mornings. Wang Yibo stood in front of his bathroom mirror, water dripping from his face as he stared at his reflection. The steam blurred his features, softening the sharpness in his eyes, but nothing softened the tension in his chest. He remembered that room. The script pages. The unspoken electricity in the silence between him and Xiao Zhan. The way the director watched them with quiet awe. He remembered thinking this might happen. And then the world shifted and it didn't. He exhaled. Why bring it back now? Why wake a project that was buried? Across the city, Xiao Zhan slipped his glasses on and stopped halfway through organizing a stack of documents. A small red mark, barely visible, sat on the back of one page. Circle. Number. A handwriting style he recognized instantly. It wasn't his. It wasn't random. It belonged to the same writer from the Dual Shadows team. This page wasn't supposed to be here. It wasn't supposed to leave that guarded office. Someone wanted him to see it. He traced the faint ink with his thumb and whispered to no one. So it's starting again. But the true spark, the real shift, didn't happen inside a studio or at a lonely apartment table. It happened in an elevator. A high-ranking producer stepped in, holding a briefcase secured with biometric locks. Two other executives followed. Their voices were low, tense, urgent. We can't risk another leak. It wasn't a leak. It was a mistake. Mistake or not, someone got too close. And what do we do now? Simple, the producer said. We finish what we started. The doors slid shut. And just before the elevator descended, a single sentence slipped out. Quiet, but clear enough to survive the closing gap. The script is alive again. And we need them both.